This is Free Minds episode 12. Fade in, question mark?
Welcome back.
We are here. We are doing things. Words are happening. My cat just attacked me. So we are Atlanta-based podcast. We're around we kind of record in Dunwoody. And let's see, what should we go through? Books. Evergreen, We Are Not the Mask We Wear, We Are the Light That Shines Through. Should be out on my website, freeminds.life, by the time this episode is released.
What's it about?
It's about how to kind of bring your past up to the surface so you can look at it and see it, and kind of see how that's shaped you in your life, and then you can kind of grow from that. It's about the past. And the second book I'm writing right now, Evergreen, The Unraveling of Love and the Unstoried Self, is about in the present, not shutting your eyes to what you have brought to the surface and running away from it, and then learning how to kind of walk this new walk and not let your past patterns get in your way of getting to where you want to go in your life, kind of thing. And it's about kind of having faith in your higher self, and it's guiding you, and synchronicities, and really just having faith in yourself and knowing that you will get to where you want to go in your life if you are able to believe in yourself. And I know it sounds cliche and cheesy, but it's kind of a manual. And it's through, I have examples from my life in it, but I'm like, okay, this is what this really means, kind of thing, from these examples and from these vulnerabilities that I'm living from, and how to be an authentic person and be yourself and not be somebody for the world, kind of thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
It's been a journey.
Facebook?
Facebook is freeminds-life.
Instagram?
It is freeminds.life.
Twitter?
freeminds_life.
Real
complicated.
How do I donate money?
We can go to Patreon and search free-minds. We have a Patreon account. If you get value out of this podcast, if it's mentally nourishing to you and it's helping you in your life, learn that we're all kind of human. We're all going through the same journey of kind of discovering who we are and learning how to step into ourselves and just be ourselves. If you're getting value from this and hearing these examples on this podcast and just learning how to feel and not think, and you want to give value back, we're totally open to it. We'll cover the base cost of the podcast first, and then eventually we'll be donating to various charities and such around the Atlanta area.
Excellent. Can't wait to read the book when it's out.
Yeah, man. It should be out. It should be out by this time this episode's released. My publisher's getting cold feet or something.
Okay. Well, I hear there's a copy. There's one copy. So
there is one copy. There is one copy around right
now.
Anyways, today we have
Jessica
Calderon.
Jessica Calderon from thej-way.com.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have a bunch of things that I do offer.
Yeah. I got your
yes.
Okay.
I do Reiki trainings, which is how I was introduced and met Trey.
Ooh, you have Chokure.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Chokure, Daikamyo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do, besides Reiki trainings, I do Reiki sessions. I do shamanic healing sessions as well. I have kind of dove into that aspect over the past year. So I've integrated a little bit more shamanic healing in with my Reiki as well.
Yep.
I teach yoga. I'm all around Atlanta. So yeah,
a
offering
lot going on.
as much as I can to help and nourish and work with people from a holistic standpoint.
Empowering yourselves so you can empower others.
Absolutely.
So usually what we do is we start with a video just to kind of get into flow in a way. It takes us out of our thinking brain, and we just watch it and we feel things. And through these feelings, the conversation can just kind of come out.
Cool.
After the video, I'll talk for a second, and then we'll just kind of jump into your journey. And we don't have to get too detailed in where you're from and all that, but at some point we all kind of wonder, who am I? And when did that journey kind of start for you? So here's the video, and let's jump into this.
I hated that job, and I clung to that job. 10 years in a place without heat, 6 years at a job I felt stuck in. Maybe I was afraid of change. Are you? When I was 29, I told myself, the next acting job I get, no matter what it pays, I will, from now on, for better or worse, be a working actor. Now, I didn't have either the internet or a cell phone, or a job. But something good happened. I got a low-paying theater job in a play called Imperfect Love, which led to a film called 13 Moons with the same writer, which led to other roles, which led to other roles. And I've worked as an actor ever since. I didn't know that would happen. At 29, walking away from data processing, I was terrified. But this made me very hungry, literally. I couldn't be lazy. Now, I tell this story because the world might say you are not allowed to yet. Please, don't even bother asking. Don't bother telling the world you are ready. Show it. Do it. Trust me. A rhythm sets in. Just try not to wait until, like me, you're 29 before you find it. And if you are, that's fine too. Some of us never find it. But you will. I promise you. Raise the rest of your life to meet you. Don't search for defining moments because they will never come. The moments that define you have already happened, and they will already happen again. Don't wait until they tell you you are ready. Get in there. I waited a long time out in the world before I gave myself permission to fail. What did Beckett say? Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail again, fail better. The world is yours. Treat everyone kindly and light up the night. Thank you so much for having me here.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing I get from that is, the world says, wait till you're ready. But, when are you ready? It's so hard to go into this thing and be vulnerable and be open. But it's what you have to do. Because, you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have it all together. When I jumped into all this, I was falling apart at the seams, But kind of like Peter Dinklage said, he's like, I didn't know that would happen. But I trusted and made the decision, that's what I am now. Right. And he stepped into it. And it takes a lot of courage. There can't be courage without fear. And it's kind of required. And we think, well, I'm not brave enough for that. Well, be scared and then do it anyway. And on this journey, I had the inclination, time to write a book. What's the book about? I don't know. And I sat down and I wrote things and I was like, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever written. And it was beautiful because I wrote it for me. I wrote what I needed to hear in that moment to make me take the next step. And then the next chapter I wrote, what else do I need to hear to make me keep taking the next step? And that's kind of the process I've had to go through in writing these books, is be completely open and vulnerable and be like, what do I actually need to hear right now to keep moving forward in my life? What do I need to hear on the podcast? Who am I interviewing? What questions do I need to ask them, person to person, heart to heart, in a way that's like, how are you doing it? How are you taking the next step and always being so brave? And usually they'll say, it's hard. And I'm never really that brave. I'm just doing it anyways. And that's the journey of life, is understanding that we're never ready, but we're ready because we're not ready in a way. And it's through failing and failing better and continuing to fail better and to looking at your past that you bring up to the surface. And you're like, what is there to learn here that I haven't been learning? What has been happening over and over and over again that there's an opportunity to learn something, and I have been ignoring that opportunity. I've been ignoring the pain that my soul sends me that says, look at this, because there's something to look at here and it's important. And until you look at it, you can't take that step, and it's going to hurt and you're going to feel sad or whatever it is, but feel it, you know. That's the only way we can start going. So yeah, I you know, most people don't think Peter Dinklage has always had it made, you know, but he didn't know. He had no idea. You know, I left a data processing job too, and I had no idea. And I still have no idea.
Yeah.
I still have no idea.
I think that's a big part of like being in this world is, I mean, what I'm doing now, if you asked me 10 years ago if I would even have a Reiki session or have any of this, I'd look at people like, you're a little crazy.
Right.
Or, you know, like the fact that I could have changed and shifted so much, that's how I knew. Because at first I didn't even kind of going through and going back to how I got to where I am now, I found that I had a tendency of not even seeing my accomplishments and just kind of going through it and not, you know, oh yeah, this is just the next step. And, oh, I don't know, I got over here. And like people would be, you know, say to me, wow, like, how did you do that?
Right.
And I was scared. I was in pain. You know, all of that. But I just worked through it because I just needed a breath of air, you know, like that next step. I couldn't live like that anymore because I was miserable. And I knew that I needed to like push forward and lean into that fear and move into that fear as best I could. Otherwise, I was just stuck.
Yeah. And it's like, Alan Watts says this, like when we stop being willing to learn and to embrace the surprises of life, then are we even living anymore? Why are we here? And it's that child. It's a weird dimension of embracing this childlike mentality of an unconditioned mind, where I can walk out that door every morning, and it can be a brand new beautiful day where I don't have to pretend that it's going to be the same 9 to 5 every day, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know where you were in your life when you started to be like, maybe I'm not happy, or maybe I need some kind of change. But kind of like you, I never thought I'd be saying I'm a medium. Like who,
Right.
you know?
Right.
I would have never thought about you when I met you
Right.
5 years ago when we were working.
And then like I find out, oh, you're a little psychic. Oh, you can kind of do this. And then I'm just stepping into it and taking a leap of faith. And I'm just saying, well, I wrote a book in a month. You know, it's probably going to work out. I don't really know how.
You just trust,
Right.
right? Taking that leap of faith and taking away the control and surrendering to that and saying, I know this is right. Like I feel it in my bones that this is the right path I'm supposed to be on. I know I'm supposed to get to this. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know, but I just know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just surrender to higher power, whatever you want to call it, to bring me into or show me the signs or give me the insight to get to that next step.
And sometimes I don't even think we need to put a name on it, you know, the higher self, higher power, whatever. Like stuff starts working out when you just start trusting that there's some kind of divine order to everything. And
is it intuition or?
I like to say like the divinity of there's so many words for it.
Right.
And I feel like for me to understand or what I connect with is because I've connected with a multitude of things like but what always comes down to is, you know, that higher power is something activated within me as well. So we are one. And this is the human form, you know, moving through, right?
So like the way I kind of like to do it is each of us is a unique expression of that higher power. But we all have access to it. It's like this one thing, like has many hands, you know, and this is Trey Jackson, this is John Nichols, just different expressions. Both have access to it though. And in a way, it's like, if you want to know how to get somewhere, ask me and I'll help you get there. And trust me, because I can see everything. Time's not real for this higher thing, in a way. But yeah, so in terms of you, like, how did this, and I don't know if there's a particular moment or if your life fell apart or like whatever it is that happened, but the journey always kind of starts when we're like, all right, I guess this is happening now.
Right. I was kind of just a little background is I was very depressed growing up. High school, middle school, I didn't show it as much. Like I kind of hid it. But then I went through a really rough patch. And I was just miserable. I remember being like the thoughts that were going through my head. I didn't even know who I was. It was like, creating these very scary moments for me, but almost inviting, like misery loves company. I just wanted to dwell in that area. And even though it's like on one end, I just wanted someone to help. And on the other, I was like, I don't want anybody to help. I didn't really understand and know what I wanted, to be quite honest, anyway, because I was so confused with the thoughts and feelings and all of that. So coming out of that, I was an artist. So I love to draw, paint, went through graphic design. So that's kind of like where I landed. Wasn't necessarily loving it and happy, but I kind of just coasted along because that's what I was supposed to do. And I just went to school for this. So that's what I'm supposed to do. But I just kind of, okay. I was really into health. I was really kind of very passionate about it. And I was at a job. I remember one of my last jobs before I left. This is all in New York also. I grew up in New York. And I remember just like, a couple people at the office saying, you talk so passionate about like health and wellness and you should write a book. You should do something with this. And I was like, I know. And I remember telling myself, but I can't, but I can't. And I didn't really, it was just, I can't. Like, how do I even do that? Where do I start? And it became so overwhelming and so far-fetched that I was like, this is not going to happen. So I just kind of put it in the back burner and talked about it like a hobby and loved it. And then my friend asked me to go to yoga. And I was like, no. No, that's going to be boring. And she, I was a runner. And no, let's go to yoga. It took me about 6 months. And I finally said yes. And after about, 2 weeks of classes, I was hooked. And I fell in love with it. And I realized how in tune and in touch I became with myself through that. And I just loved it. And I just kind of stopped doing everything else as far as like activities and workouts and all of that. It just really, truly connected with me. The breath, everything. I was really stressed out and overwhelmed. I was snappy. I was irritated all the time. Kind of like that typical New Yorker. Yeah. But that's kind of what was coming up for me all the time. And I was just kind of like sick of myself.
It happens.
And I was like, like I would snap and be like, oh my God, why did I do that? And then I would beat myself up about it. So it became this like repetitious, I'm letting my emotions take me over and then I'm going to beat myself up about it. And then I'm going to do that like over and over and over again until whatever happens. Yeah. So yoga really, truly was my first like gateway. It was my first path to feel and to experience and really start to know myself a little bit better and start to first calm myself down before I could do anything else, because the calming, I couldn't get anywhere. It was too
much mental energy.
Much. Once I was able to calm that down, I started to peel back layers.
Was it being in the body that helped you bringing all this mental energy down into the body?
Yes, the physical aspect of like doing yoga, but it was really also the breath. The breath was
prana.
So powerful for me, more so than anything. And that's what I remember the most, because I did do a lot of body stuff. Like, I was a runner. I did stuff in the body, but the breath, it was like this, oh my God, this is amazing.
Did it kind of help you remember how to breathe? Because I think a lot of people in society don't breathe.
Oh, absolutely.
And the breath is so shallow, and there's like, and instead of, nobody does that.
No. or our bodies force us to do it when we take those like deep breaths that we're not even really taking it ourselves. Our body's like, all right, we're going to breathe for you now.
Yeah.
I think the only time you do it is at the doctor.
Right. It's like when you're conscious about it. So, that the breath was a huge part of the yoga practice that brought me into like who I was, and I definitely did a little kicking and screaming to find out a lot about myself, how we always do. Like, what? No, that's not me. Wait, shoot, it is.
It's like, I don't want to own that.
Right. That's not me. I don't do that. Oh, everything that you're getting defensive about is something. Oh, don't tell me that.
Right. It's
So there was so much of that, but that definitely was my first like doorway. And then just continuously working that practice in.
Yeah.
And I kind of like my teacher. She was this amazing, peaceful yet strong person. Her energy was so amazing. I just wanted to be around her all the time. I was like, anytime I'm around her, I feel amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what led me into teaching was her. I looked at her and I was like, after about a year and a half, like even the fact of going to teacher training sounded crazy, but I was like, I want to do it. Like what started to happen was the pulls of passion of what I wanted to do started to become bigger than my mind, then become bigger than the thoughts that were telling me, I don't think you can do that.
So were you still a graphic designer at this point, all through learning yoga?
All through. I did my teacher training in New York, moved here about a year later, and I was still doing graphic design. I moved here because husband moved here at the time, and I kind of got laid off from my job. So I was like in limbo thinking, all right, this is the perfect opportunity for me to make that shift. And I can go into, teaching yoga. And I was actually taking a course in at IIN with nutrition. And this is my new path. This is what I want to do. And I got here and I was like, please don't let me get a graphic design job. And within 3 days, I got a graphic design job. And I was like, no, what are you doing? I thought you didn't want me to do this.
Do you think it was like, you get to choose, do you want to do this or not do this?
I think it was definitely a little bit of a test. But I also think now that how everything played out, I look back and I say that was my support because I wound up getting divorced.
Gotcha.
And so to live on a yoga teacher salary, that first, I needed that.
Right.
And I knew that that's what it was. Stability. Thank you for, you're lucky and you're blessed to be able to have this as a like fallback or just a support for you. And when you're ready, you'll know. And if I couldn't even tell you how easy things just started falling in place. It was like, what? Wait, it was amazing. And I'll tell you the little end of it. So I wound up working at Coca-Cola as a graphic designer. But I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't. It's pulling at me. It's doing the opposite of what yoga is doing. All the triggers, everything. And I was like, all right, I need to work on some stuff here. But I decided, I'm like, I am going to give them my 2 weeks. I was scared because I didn't have anything lined up except maybe like 1 or 2 teaching. Like I think I was teaching 2 classes. And I told my boss, I was like, sorry. And they were like, how about it, you work from home and you do like a project by project basis. And I was like, okay, I'll do that for now. We'll see how this goes. Wound up working out for like, 6 months or so. But I left that Friday. On Monday morning, I got a call of, this teacher left and she teaches 7 classes. We need a teacher. Can you teach? I was like, thank you. It was just like, here you go. This is confirmation that what you're doing is supposed to be. So after that happened, I was like, wait a second. This is pretty cool. And this is nice and I know that this is the right thing. So I started to trust more. That was like my first gateway into like trusting more.
It's funny
how everything aligns.
Mine was very the same. I put in my 2 weeks and then this injury happened.
Right
after I put in my 2 weeks. And I think I mentioned it too.
Yeah.
And everyone else around me was freaked out about it. And I'm like, I think this is just the universe giving me a reboot session or something. And then my aunt and uncle gave me this basin to live in for free. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to roll with this kind of thing. And it seems like it kind of lined up the same way for you. It was just like, here you go.
Yep. And it was confirmation like, yep, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And then Reiki came right in after. I was basically greeted. I met Jamie at the same time that I met a shaman.
Jamie Butler, just to clarify who we're talking about.
Yes, Jamie Butler,
she's a medium
in Atlanta.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
So met a shaman, and another Reiki Master, kind of within like a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And something told me, like, why are these people showing up for me? And I know I was going through some stuff and I needed some clarity and clarification and confirmation. But, you know, I didn't trust myself. And so I was guided for that. But then something else was brewing. And I remember when I walked in first and saw Jamie, she was like, you know, you could do what I do. And I was like, again, another way that I should be trusting myself more.
That too.
And I started going through all of, okay, what do I want to do? And I just kind of started piecing things together, and things just started coming together for me. And, you know, doing a lot of work on myself, for kind of like purging. I feel like everything came up to the surface.
Right.
Physical purging, mental, emotional purging. I mean, and that happens with Reiki when you go through all those certifications.
And just to kind of explain this, so like when you do Reiki, the person doing it might burp or something,
right?
Or like there's a way that energy just exits.
It could be coughing, sneezing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be laughing. It could be crying. It could be any way that it is being an emotion being expressed outward.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a cough or a sneeze or any of that. It's a way of getting energy out that may be stuck. And so that'll happen. Twitches, all of that, like, is energy movement, and uncontrolled, because it's like a rush of energy moving through.
Right.
So I started doing a lot of that, and it was just working on all areas: energetic, physical, mental, emotional.
Yep.
My meditation practice, my breathing, like my pranayama practice, all of that was just definitely necessary for me to kind of move into. And I found that I was also isolating myself a little bit, but that was needed for me to
figure out who you were.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And I didn't realize that. I started getting like, oh, I'm lonely. Oh, I don't have anybody. Oh, I don't. And I realized it was a blessing, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be in the mindset and in the place where I'm at and all the work that I've done. I was able to go inward and do a lot.
And we always think, I know who I am, but like there's so much under the surface to discover about
much.
yourself.
Always. And I think that that's just lifelong, because we're constantly interacting with the world. So the world is constantly, you know, whether it's not manipulating us, but could be tempting us and moving. Oh, look at this shiny object over here. Oh,
look how easy this is. You can just have this.
Right. It's
no work.
Like a lot of temptations, right? And I think that that's our constant work of being present, noticing what's coming up, and being okay with it, because that's another thing as we do a lot of our work. And I've noticed this a lot is, I thought I worked on this already. Why is this coming up again?
Right.
Maybe not as strong, but it's coming up again.
And it's like we have these neural network pathways in our brain, and it's just wired to fire a certain way. If you have a certain reaction to a certain situation, your brain is like, this is how I deal with that. And it takes time. You know, you can look at it and see it, and you can release a lot, but it's like phantom limb almost. Like it's still there, kind of. And it just takes time to rewire it, right? Is that kind of...
Absolutely. Yeah, and I always say it's like these, you know, it's kind of like when people do cleanses, and I used to do cleanses with people, and, you know, why are you craving this, and what's going on with that, and the emotional element that's behind so much of what we do and why we do it. And when we're vulnerable, we don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm going to have that cookie and I'm going to have that piece of cake and I'm just going to eat all that stuff that maybe is not so great for me. No, in the morning.
Triggers it.
Yeah. In the morning, we're like, I got this. I'm going to, you know, do my best today. I'm going to, you know, achieve blah, blah, blah. And we do all our stuff. And then around, you know, we get tired. We maybe had an emotional day. Later in the afternoon, we're like, I kind of want that cookie, or I want that coffee, or I want that something that's going to stimulate me, whether it brings me up or brings me into a comfort place.
Is it self-soothing?
Yeah,
is that what it is?
Yeah. Self-soothing, also self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
Right? And we find that we go into those places because there's this old familiarity that may not even be good for us, but we're like, oh, I just want to be in that comfortable, nurturing place because I feel very vulnerable and raw, and I'm running around naked right now. That's what I feel like. So I don't like that. Let me put, the things on that I feel comfortable with, whether they're good for us or not. Good, quote unquote, good, right? But
do you have any advice for people to combat that, or how do you control that?
Because not everybody can have an injury happen or whatever it is that puts us on the sideline where we can just be like, well, I have to look at this.
Yeah.
Not have to. I was wanting to, because I was very driven to move myself. And I guess it takes kind of being driven to be like, I'm sick of this. And I think that might be part of it. But how do we, if you're doing the 9 to 5, how do we just look at ourselves and not get caught up? Because you said you were kind of doing it with the graphic design, but it was harder to do it.
It was definitely harder. And I think I got pushed up into what I've noticed from my perspective of where I was is things just kept getting harder. And it wasn't so easy, meaning when I was, doing my work for graphic design, I felt like my level of patience and like anxiousness, and I just felt like I kept getting pushed. And I really believe that when things are not working out in anything, really, it's not just work, but if things are not working out and you're really trying and you're really pushing, now there's a fine line between like dedicating your work and you're doing, but if your intention is not in a good place, like if your intention is, I need to do this because I need to make money, or I need to do that, if it's not in your heart, like something has to shift. And I think that all of us here are in a different place, different time. I think to be an example for people is the best thing, because you can't tell someone to wake up. You can't tell someone to, if they're in a place and they're not ready, no matter what you do, and it'll just make you frustrated. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, you can only be that example. And I find that me getting passionate about something that's worked out for me, or something that I really enjoyed and I get excited about it, and if it could stir some inspiration in someone else, that's like my work to help. Instead of trying to be like, you have to do it this way and this is what because I feel like people resist and then you wind up battling.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think the word that you hear right there that stood out to me was passion. So like you said earlier too, a lot of people do things for the money aspect of it these days, but it's like, hey, I wish more people would put that down there and say, hey, I'm going to go after something I'm truly passionate about. And if I'm truly passionate about it, the money aspect of it will work itself out.
Absolutely. It just aligns, because it's like, okay, finally you're in their spot. And, if someone's working and they're struggling with something and it's just not going away, that struggle, I mean, you can look at it differently. You can change your reaction to it. But I really think that that's part of, the push, part of the let's get out of this. Like, you don't have to live like this.
And, some people can be like, I live through my family. I raise my kids, the job's on the side. And that's fine. Like, that's their thing. But I think there are people that like, I live to survive, which doesn't feel like living in a weird way. But then we can't be like, I think we've talked about this on the podcast. Like, I'm like, look what I did. I quit my job. I'm happier now. Y'all should do it too. No one's gonna line up for that.
Right.
It's just,
and
not
I also
happen.
think like I actually one of my teachers and amazing chiropractor here in Atlanta. She kind of talks about how.
Wait, who is it?
Dr. Kathy.
Oh, I thought
Kathy
you were saying Amy
Franklin.
King. I thought it was because we just had her on.
Oh, I know her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love her. She is just amazing. But she talks about how like, you're either living in this animal sense, which is like you're in fear, you're living to survive,
Primal.
survival instincts, right? Primal.
Fight or
You're the
flight.
vegetable, right? Your vegetable is like you're in the lazy mode. You're just kind of like, I don't really want to do much. You're just kind of in this mode of
being content.
and then the spiritual, like you're and you kind of loop into all of these different ones, and there's a nice balance. Because we're human.
Right.
We can't just be spiritual. We can't just be this way. We can't just be that way. We have to find a balance because we are this human body.
I'm not like super into the Bible and stuff, but like
Yeah.
the Gnostic texts with like the Gospel of Thomas, it talks about like don't be the fruit that shuns the tree, and don't be the tree that shuns the fruit. Like two sides of one coin. It's one thing though. And like, we don't need to act like I'm separate from this higher thing.
Right.
And the higher thing isn't separate from us. It's just like, no, you're just in the expression of Trey, but you can still bring down this. Like, it's still like, it's not saying like I am God, because that has so much baggage.
It has a little ego or
right.
ego-y.
Because it's not,
right.
I'm not saying Trey Jackson is that. I'm just saying like the hand, I'm the hand, and I can get directions from the rest of this thing, but I'm still just the hand in a way.
Right.
So anyways, like back to kind of your story, you started doing the teacher training.
So I did my teacher training, went through my yoga teacher training, really just for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm not going to be a teacher. I was petrified to be up in front of people and like talk. And so that thought just was like, no, of course I'm not going to be a teacher. I'll just do this for me and find out about me. And I'm ready to like go inside and, you know, crack open and see what's happening. And as that process started, halfway through my training, I was like, I think I want to teach. I'm scared out of my mind right now, but I definitely want to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And my teacher was like, what's your biggest fear? I was like, pretty much teaching. She's like, all right, you're going to teach next Wednesday. I was like, oh my God, no. She's like, yes, you're going to face it. And I was, couldn't sleep for 3 days.
That's good.
And then I did it. And I was like, wait, that wasn't horrible.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't super, but it's just like anything. You practice, and you feel more comfortable and you get into it. And that was total eye-opening for me. Here I was always telling myself that this would never be something I would do. Never be in front of people. Never. My mom had gone to like a medium when I was really young, and they were like, your daughter's going to be in public speaking. I was like, public speaking, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And here I am like teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just
putting
funny.
yourself out there.
Yeah. And it's just like I start looking at all the things that have happened or have played out in my life so far. So much of it I would have said, no way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a struggle. I also think I don't, like I was saying before, and it's still somewhat hard to like give myself credit for what I've done. And just kind of, because I'm just like, I'm just going about, I'm just doing what I'm doing. And,
I think there's two important things there that I wanted to touch on. Like the first one was how you said, you went through your whole life, or not your whole life, but instances in your life where you were like, I can't do this. And I think everyone does that. And I really wish people, or some advice for people is like, have an accountability partner, have someone that's pushing you, right? Because sometimes all it does is just take some time to talk to someone. That's all it takes. Talk to someone, tell them what you're thinking, and then have them hold you accountable for reaching your goals. And when someone has an accountability partner, that's when you start to see a lot of people turning around. The second one was recognizing what you've done so far. For myself, I have affirmations that I read every day. And one of my affirmations is take time to recognize the successes that you've done in your life. And I don't think a lot of people do that.
No.
Being proud of yourself.
Being proud of yourself. Like, it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
like,
this.
Wow, you look what you did since you've come here. Like, my life has done like a 360 since I've been in Atlanta for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's like amazing and crazy. And
do you think sometimes we just normalize our accomplishments and we're just like, that's not a big deal?
Absolutely. I mean, I look at things that I've gone through in my life, very, very, some traumatic, and I don't even say I have trauma. I'm like, no. Like for much of my life, I was like, no, that wasn't traumatic. And then I'm like, that was horrible. What am I talking about?
But like, I bet when we're saying that wasn't traumatic, we're not like feeling what it felt like.
No.
And when we remember that memory, we're like, holy shit.
Yes. Which is, I think, a big part of like the part of trauma, right? We're like, we either are terrified of it because we could feel it, or we numb ourselves. And I've definitely numbed.
That was a number.
For most of my, any uncomfortable, bad, whatever situation that I was in, numb. Let me just turn it off, right?
Yeah.
And then, so it's almost like unrecognizable to me, to your point of like recognizing. So whether it's something quote unquote like, oh, this really great thing happened or this really bad thing happened, I'm kind of neutralizing both.
Right.
Because that's all I know.
Right. Because it's like, for me, like I wrote a book and it's, you know, it's out basically now. But part of me is like, not a big deal.
Right.
Not a big deal. Don't even try to pretend it's a big deal.
Dude, you wrote a book in a fucking month or two.
Yes.
I mean, I automatic
That's
writing.
amazing.
Automatic writing's
That's an accomplishment.
automatic writing's a little easier because I'm just listening and writing and I'm
Yeah.
not getting in my own way. But I think that's the point is
Yeah.
don't get in your own way when you're writing a book. Just let it come out and trust it. And that's, Mark Twain was like, or maybe it was Charles Dickens. I don't know. One of them. They were like, how do you write a book? Sit down and write.
Right.
That's it.
What about the War of Art?
Art of War? What?
No.
Question mark?
I'm just blanking on the guy's name now. Great book. He's a writer.
Gonna pop in your head.
And he talks about the whole idea of like you self-sabotage constantly. But yeah, like if you're writing a book and the reason why people can't write when they get stuck, it's because they're like drawing that blank. It's almost like when I was talking about the frozen aspect. It's like you want so much and you can't even get there because you're just blank.
I've heard
You're thinking so much that you go blank.
I've heard a comparison of sometimes when we either can't find our phone or we can't find our keys, we're like, okay, well, where did I put those? And we start like trying to grasp in our mind, like analyzing, like, where's the last time I went? And the real thing is ask yourself, where did I put my keys? And then you wait. And then eventually either A, your body will turn to them and you will see them, or the memory will pop in your head. But you're not looking for it. You just asked your subconscious or whatever you want to call it a question like, hey, can you send me this info? My intuition. And then you wait. You don't go looking for it and it comes to you.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Absolutely. And that's another part of like, I guess what we were talking about before too, is like, how do people know like what to do? I think number one, everyone needs to just slow down,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If we can slow down, take pauses, take moments to just take a breath in, take a breath out, ground yourself, and then speak. Ground yourself, and it doesn't have to be this whole long involved thing. Just take a breath, ground yourself, be in your body, and speak. Think. Like that's after you do that. And there's going to be so much more clarity, so much more productivity happening. I think we just go too fast and we're not patient. I mean, I'm
Definitely
saying
not
all
patient.
this and I've done all of it.
But that's the point.
But
The point is being like, it's okay to be saying it because it's part of your journey.
And
And like,
that's the only reason why I can say it.
Yeah.
Because I've actually known it and felt it. So I can say that to be true for me. But I think as a collective, we're just trying to go faster and faster and faster. And we're definitely picking up, okay, I need to slow down
It's
and
there.
I need to do this. But it's like, and I think, and that's how people are waking up. Like by slowing down, we wake up.
yeah, it's just taking a breath.
It's hard these days.
Oh, I always tell people, I'm like, whenever I'm talking, like it's easier said than done. I'm saying
Totally.
this, but I'm not saying like, oh, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's work. It's exhausting. It's tiring.
Yeah. And like a lot of the stuff I wrote in my first book, I'm like, oh shit, I don't do all of that. I wrote it down and I did it, momentarily.
Yeah.
But then I was like, let's go back to old patterns for a second because those are easier.
Yeah.
And
it comes back to the vulnerability.
Right. And that's part of the second book I'm writing. I'm like, look, I mean, I didn't even realize book one, just bringing it all to the surface. That's really all I was doing. And then book two is like mental alchemy, whatever you want to call it. Just like learning to go back to these moments in our past and like see a moment in our past that was traumatic and then stepping outside of ourselves, not even getting involved in the feeling yet, just looking at it from an outside perspective and seeing, okay, that child, that was really traumatic for him. And I feel so much compassion for that part of me now, as opposed to judging myself or being embarrassed for myself for the fact that happened and then not being able to let go of that memory kind of thing. Which is why I think we get stuck a lot. I get stuck with it a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if on your journey and like starting to teach, you started being like, okay, well, why is this coming up for me? Where is this coming from? What is causing this to restrict me from being authentic and vulnerable?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think when I first started teaching, I definitely, because that in itself was big. That was like, okay, enough with the steps. Let's just hold this step and just chill here for a second. So I find that, my first, whatever it was, year or so, I was probably a little bit more in the physical, like, oh, let's just do the asanas and let's just move and not really talk as much from a spiritual aspect, and maybe kind of bring in some of the, philosophy and understanding of yoga. But I wasn't where I'm at now, where I'm really kind of bringing in like life lessons and the spiritual aspect of, us as beings, and the energetic part of us, definitely. And because I'm living it too, so it's easier for me to speak it.
Right.
And half the times when I'm talking about or giving a talk in the classes, it's, yes, I'm going through that, and that's why we're talking about it.
Right.
Or that's what's on my mind, what I'm going through.
But it's relatable because it's
totally
authentic.
Relatable. And I find that, once I started being more vulnerable is when I started connecting to people.
Yeah, and I don't think, sometimes I confuse vulnerability with I'm word vomiting on you.
Right.
As opposed to I'm going through this thing and this is what it's been like for me, and this is how I'm going to empower myself through this, or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's an emotional instead of a mental.
Right.
Because we can talk, and I can be vulnerable through words, but it's
Feeling.
intellectualizing my emotions, and I can speak of vulnerability, but can you actually feel my vulnerability?
Right.
Can you feel me? Can you experience my emotion? Like, we're watching stuff and we're looking at stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to cry right now because I have been touched by what that person is going through, because maybe I know someone who's going through it, or I'm going through it, or something has stimulated that aspect in me. And I think that that's when we come together and connect, because it's like, oh, I'm not alone in this.
Right.
My teacher's going through that same thing. So then if she's going through that, there's like hope for me, or,
Right.
or I'm not alone, or you know what? I really want to be with that. And then I do the same thing with students, right? Like, and then it's like with my clients and all of that. Like, I feel like all of the people that are around me now in my business is more, I'm more connected somehow in a more kind of emotional way. And that's kind of like who I'm attracting, because that's
Right.
who I'm being, right? We attract, and
Yeah, like attracts.
Right.
Like it's
which is sometimes like, oh, I guess I'm being like that.
the last person we had on the podcast was like, there's a point when like you are alone and you're like, there's a part that's kind of not selfish, but it's like, I want to believe that I'm the only person this is happening to, because that makes me special in some way.
Right.
And no one else has ever gone through this. But then it's so much better when you're like putting it on the table and then seeing everyone is human, and we're all so similar and we don't even realize it. And we're all going through the same kind of stuff with our own baggage or whatever it is, and just like learning how to be human and not to be this perfect idealism that society says, be this, because then
Absolutely.
you'll be happy. Grass is greener on the other side, whatever it is.
Yeah. And I mean, that was my thing. Like, coming from the graphic design aspect was always making me like this perfectionist. Everything has to be perfect and this and that and this and that. And then it was like the control, right? That's what that is. It's like you're trying to control everything. Oh, I can't control that, so I'm going to control this. And then you just like, that was a big part of things. And I see it coming up every now and then. And I'm like, oh, I thought I dealt with that. Let it go, Jess. Let it go. But, that's how we evolve, and we're learning.
That element of control, I think it's funny because we try to control and it never works, and then we keep trying to do it. And I am curious why you think we are so anxious to just, everything needs to be in this controlled box. And it's like, if I can see it, I can control it. And then, we might try to control the way we eat or something else, because we're not able to control the rest of our life. And it's just this trying to control everything. It clearly doesn't work. And yet most of society, myself included, I still do it. I still try to control the way the book comes out or whatever. What does it mean to you?
So I think that, I could think of what goes on with me. And yeah, it's like, I know that this is not, I think it happens out of when we're not present for the most part. I think we get taken by our old patterns, our old habits, or our old thinking ways, and we just like can't we can't get into that other mind frame of or looking at it in a way of it's like an old vulnerability, I think, a comfort that even though we know we can't control, we still go into that place.
And we have, at least me, like there's evidence like when I let go of control, that's when things all fell into place. It's when I let go of control of how it happened. It's like, I know I want to get to this destination, but I can't really control how it happens.
Right.
I have to trust the universe is going to set it up for me to work out the best way, as long as I'm present and open to it. But it's easier said than done.
Yes. And I think it's also constant reminders, because I also think that we don't realize what we're trying to control.
Yeah.
Right? So we go about our day and it's this like, oh, why can't this work out? And it's like the tangible idea of control. We know what that is. And we almost feel like, all right, well, I'm not controlling that. I'm going to let that go. But when these other things come up that are not felt or touched, we're like, I'm not trying to control that. Yeah, you are. And we have to like step back for a moment and say, what's actually going on here right now?
Do you have any like, stepping outside of yourself, I think is really key here. And I fail to do it all the time, because I don't want to step out of myself and see what's really going on for some reason.
Like observing,
right?
Like being
just,
in this observation mode of
me, of just observing myself as a human and being like, what's really going on for Trey Jackson here? Like, what's really happening for me, as opposed to being caught in the hurricane. Maybe I stand in the center of the hurricane to where it's calm and I can actually see. And it's hard.
So hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you start teaching, did you find yourself... Did you find yourself trying to please every student that was in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. And it was almost like if one person was like, nah, I was like, oh my God, I have to change the whole thing just for that one person. But, you know,
So
the rest
funny.
of the people were fine. Yeah,
So
totally.
We
And
just
I
had
think
another episode in the same exact thing.
And then you start to realize, okay, not everyone's going to like me, and I can accept that. Once you accept that and you say, all right, I'm going to stand in front of this, okay, not everyone's going to like this that I'm doing. Not everyone's going to like this, but I'm still going to be authentic in what I want to do. And if it's real and it's meant to be, my tribe will come, right? It's like, if you build it, they will come. But it's kind of, I'm going through that. I have my meditation on Monday mornings that I do, and it's free. And I'm like, I'm talking about it and I'm trying to get people to do it. It's been like a little bit of a process there. I'm like, it's free meditation. Why do people not want to do that? And it becomes, all right. And it's starting to build and it's starting, but I just kept plugging at it because I'm like, this is something I want to give back. I want to do. I don't care if one person shows up. Like I started letting go of okay, who's showing up and how many. And no, it's not about that. It's about me being here and giving out, calm and energy to people and whatever people can take out of it. If I can touch one person, then, great.
Do you think, you're talking about having to please everyone. Do you think, some people may ask, well, how should I think about that? Like not having to please everyone. Do you think it just comes with time?
I think it's a lot of work. It's a lot of awareness first, because you don't realize you're doing it. It's like the boundaries that we don't set, and we say yes to everything for the most part. Oh yes, I'll do that. Oh yes, I'll do that for you. And we do it for all these other people. Then there's resentment that comes up because then you say, well, now I don't have time for myself. I can't go to my yoga class.
Bingo.
I can't do my meditation because now I'm going to this client or this teacher, whatever it is. And you start to get resentful, but you hold it back because, oh my God, how could I be mad at this person? I just told them I could do it.
Right.
And this constant dialogue starts to go back and forth in your head.
That's so awful. I know.
But it's the constant dialogue. And then we say, It's I always think of that movie with Jim Carrey, The Yes Man.
Yes, man.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's like,
Jim Carrey's
There's
awesome.
a part of you that just needs to like throw down that boundary and border of yourself that you're barricading. But at the same time, you just need to say like, all right, today I'm just going to say one no to someone. Just one.
And don't feel bad about it.
And don't feel bad about it. Take one thing that someone asks you today and just kind of let it flow. Like if you're like, oh, I really don't want to do that, say no and see what happens. What's the worst? Because we're always curious and scared about what the other person is going to think of us. And that's why we're the people pleasers. If this person doesn't like me, well, what if we don't like me? I don't like me. What's going on right now? Like
Right.
that should be more important than if this person doesn't like me. Then we basically say, here's my power, thank you, and I'll give it to you, and
Yeah.
and then we keep doing it. And I get it. Sometimes, listen, to help out and like overextend yourself sometimes, that's fine, but it can't be all the time. And you can't have so much resentment for it. There is that fine line between like the ego time and like you can't get all the way on one end. You have to be able to and willing to do what's best for you. There has to be like non-negotiables for yourself.
Right.
Like what are 3 things that you're going to do for yourself today that's, non-negotiable?
That's a good
I
idea.
like that. Yeah.
I take,
Or even one. Just take one thing to
Yeah.
start, right?
yeah. And it can start little. Like the way I've written about it is just like start with just taking an hour for yourself where you just take, no one else is in your ballpark, nothing, and no electronics, nothing. Just what do I need right now for myself? And then I turned that into like a whole day off. I just took like a sacred day where I go into nature, no phone. I don't get rid of Trey Jackson, but I'm like, all right, you're not going to run the show today. I'm just going to reconnect with infinite possibility of who I can be and not the limited perception of myself.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah. I take an hour every morning
Yeah.
right before I go to work, and I do certain things every morning that just get me going.
And that I think it's so important for us to do something with that. I do. I plan I have like a little bit of a routine in the morning. I get out of it every once in a blue. Like it's almost like my Monday is always the same, my Tuesday is the same, my Wednesday, but they may not be the same. Just depending.
That's okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that's a big issue. Like, oh, I have to go to the gym, 7 days a week.
Right.
I have to stick to my plan. It's
Right.
like, it's okay to miss a day. Like,
Yeah.
we're human.
Yeah.
Or
That's what
even
being
like
human's
it's
about.
not the same schedule every day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's basically my life. Every day, every Monday's the same, every for the most part, but like my week to week, every day like I don't have that 9 to 5 and like everything is the same and I have a client. But I set my days up where I'm like, okay, these days is when I'm doing this and this and this for myself. These days I'm doing this, this and this. Every night I, decompress and I have my thing. And then every morning I, have my, but even if it's 5 minutes, like I tell a lot of people, like, especially with meditation, people are like, oh, I got to start meditating and that's nerve wracking and I can't do it. It's hard. I'm like, it's a practice. It's not supposed to be easy.
It's a muscle you're building.
Yeah.
You can't
Like you're not going to go and run a marathon and be
boom.
like, okay, boom, done. Like, no, you're going to practice for the marathon or you're going to practice for weightlifting and bodybuilding and all that stuff. It's a practice. So you have to dedicate time to it, even if you sit there and your mind is going crazy for the whole time.
It's somebody said it's not a discipline. It's better to use the word skill because discipline makes people get all, I'm not disciplined, but like, well, what about learning a new skill and just becoming good at that skill?
Right.
as
You would
opposed-
rather have a new skill.
Yeah, I'd much rather have a new skill to add to my repertoire of like my
Right.
avatar, whatever it is.
Well, right. And it's kind of like someone had said to me, like each time you have a person, like if someone comes to me and says, oh, I need to work on, this food or, I need to get a routine in play. And
Why?
And I say, all right, well, this is what you need to do. And they're like, well, I'm like, wait, so you want help from me or you want your own version of the help from me? And that's not okay either, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, now you're already, serving yourself up disappointment. You're already telling yourself you can't do it.
Right.
And you're trying to negotiate. Well, I'll do a little bit. But you got to go all in. If you want change, you got to go all in. And if you can't do that, you're not dedicated. You're not in the mind. You're not putting all your energy in the right place.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just an intention.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of things with intention. We're like, Because I'll sit up and I'll wake up and I'll meditate, and I don't have an intention behind my meditation. I'm just sitting there, and then I get annoyed, and I'm like, I don't want to be doing this,
Right.
because I had no intention of
Right.
wanting to do it.
Right. Because you're almost putting yourself in a place. You're almost putting yourself in a place that I have to do this,
Mhm.
as
Right.
opposed to this is going to be really good for me.
Or I'm adding value to myself. Or
Right.
something.
Like something that's encouraging versus, the shoulds, the haves. Oh, I have to meditate today. I've tried to like work that out of my vocabulary, have and should.
Yeah, somebody told
like
me
that. Yeah.
make a list of all the things you should do, and then make a side list of all the things you could do, and see how different you feel about the should versus the could, and then just of the ones that could, just do the ones that you feel good about,
Right.
as opposed to there's the should and could are just totally different energies in terms of like what
So
they mean to
much.
people.
So much. And I put so much pressure on myself for a long time doing the shoulds and I should be doing this. And it's not even I should be to anybody but myself. I'm telling myself I should be doing this. So I'm already like getting,
Right.
putting myself
You're
down.
amping yourself up for that.
It's like, well, Jess, if you don't do this, it's like I'm reprimanding
What's
myself
gonna
already
happen?
before
Yeah.
like I even
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So why am I putting that energy out? No, it's like,
we
you know what? This would be really cool if I did this today for myself.
Just try it out.
And then it's like such a gentle, loving way of bringing that into your day. Okay,
yeah.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
I think it's just not reprogramming, but kind of like
Yeah.
just changing the way we talk to ourselves.
Right.
As opposed to a parent disappointed in a child. There's an inner critic that is, telling you, well, you could have done better there.
Right.
It's just changing we have to be in the present moment to see that it's happening, but it's seeing that it's happening. Be like, okay, that's happening. I wonder why that's happening.
Right.
Where is that coming from?
And
Which
yeah,
takes time.
I was gonna say, if you have a hard time changing or doing stuff differently, do it. You don't have to do everything at once, right? Try something. Say I'm not going to be on Facebook for 5 minutes, or I'm only going to be on Facebook. I'm going to take 5 minutes out of my Facebook time, and I'm going to try something new for 5 minutes
Right.
for a day. I mean, it doesn't have to be this huge change where you're
No.
completely getting rid of something and then adding something else.
I
Like,
think consistency,
Yeah.
like the persistence and the consistency of something. And again, you build. You do, okay,
Build it
I'm
up,
going to
yeah.
do 3 minutes of just breathing in the morning, and that'll be my meditation. Perfect.
That's
Do
right.
that.
And it doesn't. People get weird about the word meditation.
I know.
Just breathe for
You
5
could be
minutes.
walking in nature and connecting
Yeah.
with nature.
So you have a lot going on for you now, and I'm sure you weren't saying I should be doing all of this stuff. Did it all just kind of, I don't want to rush things, but all just kind of fall into your lap, or like you obviously were like, oh, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. I'm going to also do Reiki. I'm also going to do this
Right.
meditation stuff. Like, I'm sure it just
It
happened
just
kind of
kind of
organically.
happened. Yeah. Like I wasn't like, I want to do Reiki now. And again, it just kind of,
You kinda
something
just
inside
adding
me, it
things.
just kind of like came up and I was like, oh,
Yes or
I
no?
wasn't seeking it.
Mm-hmm.
It sought me out.
Right.
Right. I kind of felt like, oh, it's being presented to me. Okay. The shaman, same thing. I really was like, I'm not doing any more studies. Like I really want to focus on what I have learned and then drop in my
Right.
lap.
So would you say, I think it's like setting an intention of, I would like to be happier in my life, and I would like to be doing something that feels purposeful to me and feels like I'm leading with my heart instead of my head. Universe, what could that be? And then just be open to what happens.
Absolutely. I do a lot of intention and vision boarding,
Mm-hmm.
which just puts my
Mind and
mind and my vision of what I want. And then if I'm not really sure, I'll write out like, bring me whatever it is that I need and just leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think about it. And knowing that, next month I might kind of change my mind on some of these things if I'm starting to work towards it and I'm like, something doesn't feel right. I go off of my feelings more, like this intuitive feeling more so than anything. But again, I feel like I did a lot of work with that.
yeah.
To build that trust of like, oh, confirmation. Oh, I'm feeling like I'm connecting. I get the chills when I get like confirmation of, okay, that's right.
like, yes.
And it's just like, now I've just learned it. So, I'm like, all right, cool. Like I trust it so much that I don't have to question And what I could say is like, once you start to do that, once you start to practice trusting, there's so much freedom.
And
it's like amazing.
it can be the way I started doing it was like, I'm just trusting little things at first. Like, what aisle do I need to go to in the grocery store to get water? And I let my feet take me somewhere, and then they stop, and I'm like, oh, perfect. It's little things that you won't be bummed out about. And it's this book called Waking Up in 5D. It's like for 45 days, just request simple things. You know, what route should I take to work? Or maybe not that one, because the lane of traffic is awful sometimes. But it's like, what shirt do I need to wear today? Or just like little things, and just trusting like the first thing that comes up, just like
it's
that.
Always that initial first thing. Even like something that just like flows into you without even thinking. You're just like, oh, where'd that come from? Oh, pay attention to that, because that was the guidance coming through that you need to pay attention to.
Right.
That had nothing to do with the conversation, but it had something to do for you. All of that is so powerful and important. And then when you quiet, like it's pretty amazing.
It's a feeling, though, right? It's not
absolute feeling.
Because people are like, well, what if my intuition says pizza or whatever? It's like, does it feel? You know, it's an intuitive hit. Feels like a feeling of, oh, this is so right. It feels like, not like ecstasy, but it's just like pure like giddiness or something.
It just and it's so hard to describe feelings
with words.
Because we're like, what does it feel like? And it's almost like when someone wants to do Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, what's going on? What happens? I'm like, well, this could or this may or may not happen. You just have to experience it. Because usually when I'll talk about it and then they experience it, it's like, oh, wait, hold on. That was like definitely different. And then I'm like, all right, you try to explain it to me. Nope, I don't know. And they try to, and it's like, but it's a feeling. And we're such an intellectual society that we've lost vocabulary, or we say, oh, how do you feel? Good. Like, that's not even a feeling.
Right.
But we've like created these words to say, how am I feeling? To either start a conversation or just like not want a conversation. Oh, I'm fine.
Oh, that bothers
Done.
me so much. I was just thinking about that today.
Yeah. Like,
First
that's
thing.
what we.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. We're not like,
are you really?
oh my God, I'm vibrant with energy today, because no one wants to hear that. Or I feel amazing. My body feels like really fluid. Like, we don't describe ourselves in that way because people will look at us and say, well, I didn't need that much information.
Right.
Well, you asked me how I was.
Right. But do we really care? It's kind of like these.
How's it going?
Yeah. Or even like, I was even saying this with one of my clients the other day. All of our conversations that we have, for the most part, with strangers are complaints.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's raining.
Let's complain together.
It's too hot out. Oh, it's it's too cold. I'm so busy. I'm stressed out. It's that. Why is that our go-tos?
I think it's just
it's comfort.
It's safe.
It's easy.
It's very safe.
Yeah.
I guess it's also real, but there's other things going on that we can talk about. And why are we going to that? And like, small conversation, I get it. Like, there's not, how much information do I give up? And does this person really want to talk to me about certain things?
You can feel when a person comes to you and asks you a question. You can feel if they actually are talking to you or just, somewhere else. Yeah. You can feel it. Again, a feeling. It's an intuitive hit. Like, should I make a connection with this random stranger? Could this lead somewhere helpful?
Right.
It's a feeling like this person feels authentic or something. Right. I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But it's a feeling, and you have to be in tune to feel it. You can't be in your head.
And I think that, right. And I think the feeling aspect is such a huge part of it. And I think when I started, I was using a pendulum a lot too in the beginning of my kind of practice of trust.
Yeah.
And
which is just like you ask it yes, no questions.
Yeah. Right. So yes, no, you program it, and it's like yes, no questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, but it kind of, and then that was like my gateway into, and then the physical sensation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting there and I get these chills, or I say something. I mean, I'm so trusting to certain things now. I'm out in nature. I'm just walking. I think of something, and like something comes through, and I'm like, oh, thank you. I already know what that answer was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was nothing exchanged but energy. And I
but
already know. I
the
don't
energy-
even know how I know. I just know.
Right. It's
Unexplainable.
with words. Yeah, it is. So if we're kind of going to wind down.
Yeah.
But if there's something you could, I'm assuming this didn't happen overnight for you, and I think it's managing it in smaller, like we were talking about running the other time on another episode, and I was like, you can't be like, I'm going to go run 5 miles.
Right.
You can be like, I'm going to go run this lap, and then I'm going to run the next lap and the next one, and you keep accomplishing these measurable things that you can be proud of, and you carry that with you to kind of create this new belief system of I actually can run 5 miles, and I just did it by doing 1 lap at a time, kind of thing, which I want to reiterate to people. But if you want to leave a message with everyone to just kind of be like, this is feasible, you can do anything, really. If you can imagine it, you can do it, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think we get overwhelmed from hearing a lot of people's, stories and awakenings, and we look at that and we're like, oh, that won't happen, right? So, just some things that I have or thought that would be like tangible work is really focusing on yourself, whether it be like journaling through some stuff, thoughts, feelings, all of that. Writing an intention every day, like whether it be, everyone hears like gratitude journal, and people I think are, rolling their eyes at that, even though, I mean, that's such a huge thing. But like the gratitude, okay, so it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be specific, I think, because I think that that's what scares people off. Like, oh, I have to write 3 things that I'm grateful for. I don't know. Just write whatever comes through to you. And if you need hints, gratitude, something that you're grateful for. Set an intention for the day. Mm-hmm. What would you like to do? And then I always like to say, like, what could you do for someone else? What could you do for yourself? Right? And then what could you do for like maybe your community, mm-hmm. if you wanted to? And taking that time out though, like wherever the time is throughout the day, to be with yourself. 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Set some time for yourself for the meditative aspect, or, breathing, or go out in nature, take a walk. Mm-hmm. So I think, the journaling, the pausing moments for yourself, and whatever that looks like to you is really important, and just keep coming back in. Yeah.
I think out of all of that, I think pausing is the most important, not most important, but I think it's the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. There's no, I failed at pausing. Right. I mean, maybe some people think there is, but it's just, you just have to stop for a second, and then the hurricane will start to subside, and you'll be like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal. It's okay. Right. It's totally okay to feel this way and to be having this moment of insecurity or whatever it is, and just breathing through it, and it all ends up being okay, because we're human, and, shit's going to happen.
Right.
We're going to get caught up in our emotions. But as long as we feel them when they're happening and we don't deny them, then I think we'll be okay. And I really am optimistic in terms of, I think more and more people are just starting to be like, time to change in a way, like time to actually do something about this, as opposed to just sitting by the wayside. Not everyone, but right. I think more and more people are just learning, like, maybe I should just focus on here for myself, for self-care, and for others, but mainly for self-care, for being selfish, but taking care of ourselves. And taking care of ourselves is doing what you just said.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that was a huge part of how I dove into my work, mm-hmm. of being human. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool beans. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
you so much for having me.
This has been awesome.
This is awesome. Loved it.
I was trying to end it at 1:11 and 11 seconds, but I missed it. But yeah, this was super fantastic. And
7 is my numbers.
Okay. So toodles for now. We'll be back again soon. Again, the book will be out on freeminds.life if you want to purchase it. And the second book and the third book actually will both be out by the end of the year too. So it'll be a little 3-book series on past, present, and future, and kind of learning how to move forward in your life and not take stuff too seriously and just be okay with being an imperfect human. Cool beans, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Toodles for now.